7. Stay the Night. This story was first written as a play and flighted by South Africa's national broadcaster, the SABC. They pulled up to the old, derelict house. "Well," said Andrew, "I see she hasn't done any maintenance since we were last here." "She's a 94-year-old widow," replied Linda. "What did you expect?" "You're right. I feel bad now." Linda stretched her back. It was aching with the extra weight of her growing belly. Sometimes she wished she could take it off for an hour and hang it on the back of a door to give her back a break and to feel light again. "You feel bad? Why?" Andrew pushed his sunglasses up the bridge of his nose and shrugged. "I could have come over every now and then, fixed a few things." Linda shrugged. "It's not like she lives up the road. It's a 2-hour drive. Besides, what you know about DIY is scary." She wouldn't mention the nursery at home, or how far behind they were in getting the furniture in and painting the place. They didn't even have a crib yet. It made her nervous just thinking about it. "I could have boarded up those broken windows, for one. Could have hired someone to get rid of that mound of rusty rubbish, pulled up some blackjacks. A 2-hour drive isn't the end of the world. There's the drive back home, invariably in the dark. Not safe. She has plenty of space. We could have just stayed over." Linda shook her head. "No, not allowed. Against the rules." "What do you mean?" Andrew took off his glasses and frowned at her. "Hodgie was always begging us to stay the night. I never understood—" Linda drummed her fingers on her knees. "It's just a thing, okay? An agreement." Andrew's furrows deepened. "Between you and Hodge?" "Between Peter and I. We siblings swore." "Siblings swore? What are you two? 12? Linda stopped drumming. "We were 16, if you must know." Andrew laughed. "Why? Is the house haunted?" "In a way." He stopped laughing, perhaps remembering that Linda had lost her parents when she was 16. "In a way?" "Bad things happen if you stay over." Linda opened her door and levered her aching body out of the vehicle. She walked over to the dead potted plant on the front veranda and retrieved the key from underneath the dusty saucer. After unlocking the stubborn door, she pushed it open, and they both took a quick step backwards. "God!" gasped Andrew, covering his nose. "What is that smell?" Linda had only recently recovered from her morning sickness that had lasted all day for 6 months. The reek made her spin to face the splintering balcony and retch into the field of weeds below. Andrew tried to help her, but she held her hand out to stop him. After so many months of holding her hair back while she vomited, she was sure he'd never want to kiss her again. Best he keeps his distance and pass her the bottle of water from the car, both of which he did, without her asking. She wiped her lips with a tissue from her pocket and swirled some water in her mouth. Rotting food, probably. It's not like she had time to tidy the fridge before the ambulance picked her up. "You're telling me," said Andrew. "Look at this pile of old newspapers. Looks like she hasn't had time to tidy the house since 1979. He seemed amused and in good spirits despite the awful stink. He leaned over to study some of the old headlines. "Who keeps decades-old newspapers?" "Journalists, hoarders, and 94-year-old widows who want to hang on to memories." They took a few tentative steps inside, and Linda opened the curtains and windows. Dust glittered in the air, and she sneezed. It was far worse than they had expected. You couldn't see the walls for the piles of junk that hid them. "I'll call someone," said Andrew. "I mean, someone we can hire a skip from, and some extra hands." "A rubbish skip? We can't just throw her things away. She'll go postal. And we can't have strangers in here. She's very protective of her things." "We don't have a choice," said Andrew. "This place will take months to sort out, and we've got a weekend. You can't expose yourself to the mold in here, and I've got a bad back." Linda nodded, but felt sad for Granny Hodge. She'd be heartbroken. She was very attached to the ramshackle house. "Honestly," said Andrew, looking around with a slightly wrinkled-up nose, "I'd prefer to burn the whole thing to the ground." "It would be quicker," said Linda. "Cheaper," added Andrew. And it would probably smell better too. "I've got a couple of things for her," said Linda, walking down the creaking stairs with a small tote bag over her arm and holding something stick-like in her hand. She shows it to Andrew. It's her 100-year-old toothbrush. It looks like it's been used to scrub an entire prison block's toilets. Do you think it's worth taking? Or shall I just buy a new one at the hospital? Knowing her, she might want this particular one. Some shampoo, some lotion, underwear. Do you think 2 nightgowns is enough? I don't know what old people need." "Well, don't ask me. Shall we go?" "Let's have a cup of tea first." "We can have a cup of tea at the hospital, with Hodgie." Linda looked a little pale. "I'd like one now." "Why are you stalling?" "I'm not. I'd just really like a cup of tea." Andrew pursed his lips. He wasn't used to his wife insisting on satisfying any cravings, despite the difficult pregnancy. "Okay, why don't you put your feet up and I'll put the kettle on?" "No, I brought the thermos. It's in the car." "What? It'll be cold by now. You hate cold tea." It's another rule about visiting here. We're not to eat or drink anything. Ever." "What has gotten into you?" "What do you mean?" "You're not yourself. Look, it's understandable. You're emotional about your—" "It's not that." "What is it?" He stepped closer to her and took her arm. "Have you never noticed it before?" she said, her eyes wide and suddenly childlike. "When we visited here before, when my brother and his family visit?" "Notice what?" "We always bring our own food and our own drinks." "But that's not unusual. We take our own food to my parents' house too. Of course we do. With so many mouths to feed, and Mum's always been a terrible cook." "The 2 rules when visiting Hodgie are, 1, bring your own food, and 2, never stay the night." Andrew walked in, thermos in hand. Linda was rummaging through some brown boxes. "Here's your plastic cup of cold tea." Linda looked up and smiled. "Thank you. I've called the movers and the refuse removal company. They'll be here in the morning." "Already? It seems so soon." "You're welcome." Linda was distracted by the contents of a box and didn't reply. She held a black and white ribbon in her hand. "I found a few pieces of furniture worth keeping," he continued. "An oak rocking chair, a cherry wood secretary desk. We can put them in storage for now, till she moves into the new place. Hopefully, they'll make her feel a bit more at home." She put the ribbon to the side. "That's great. Thank you." "You okay?" Linda looked up, forcing a smile. "Yep." "Making much progress there? Searching for the family silver?" "Family silver would come in very handy right now. Peter's found a few assisted living facilities, all way out of my budget, of course. He's been earning pounds for so long, he can't convert to rands anymore. I asked him to keep looking. Her hospital bills alone will put me into debt for a year." "I can't believe she's not on any kind of medical aid." "Granny Hodge never paid for anything that wasn't absolutely necessary." "I noticed that none of the toilets had been flushed in a while." "She sprinkles baby powder in them instead, ostensibly to save water." "She buys non-perishables in bulk. I counted 22 tins of baked beans in the larder." "She dyes her hair with prune juice." "What were you looking for?" "When I came in, just now." Linda blew her fringe out of her eyes. "What do you mean?" "You seemed distracted." "Did I? It's probably just pregnancy brain." "You sure?" She tested a nearby chair for sturdiness, then sat down on it. "I don't know. I do feel a bit weighed down." "By Hodgie's situation?" "By the history in here. I mean, this place is brimming with, well, it's full of dead people's things." Andrew sat down next to her. "Have you found some of your parents' things?" "Some, yes, but also things from Uncle Sid." "I didn't know you had an uncle." "He died when we were small, and also things from Hodgie's late husbands." "Late husbands? Plural?" "Yes, she lost 2. We never met the first one. Apparently, he wasn't very nice anyway. I guess everyone loses people. I'd say your grandmother lost more loved ones than the average person. And to lose your children? That must be the worst thing. He swallowed hard. The worst. People used to say that Hodgie was trailed by grief. It actually became a thing with her, like an obsession. What do you mean? She began to enjoy funerals. Like she'd scan the local obituary pages and go to strangers' funerals. That's bizarre. I suppose we're all odd, in our own way. Odd, said Andrew. Most old people are pretty eccentric, left to their own devices, but I'd say that Hodge sounds batshit crazy. Linda gave Andrew a skew-lipped smile. He put his hand on her knee. You ready to go yet, or are you still stalling? Still stalling, said Linda. Let me finish sorting through this box, and then we'll go. When the doorbell rings, it's 7 p.m. What? Exclaims Linda. How did it get so late? And who could be at the door? Pizza, said Andrew. Hey? I ordered pizza. You're pregnant and you haven't eaten for hours. You're a saint. I love you. Go on, said Andrew. I'll try and dig out the dining room table. Linda opens the front door. That's a strange-looking pizza. I beg your pardon, said the old woman with the dramatic eyeliner and purple rinse. Edna was the eccentric neighbour and Hodgie's best friend, the one who had faded plastic flamingos in her front garden and black barbed wire wrapped around her orange brick house. She'd always been grumpy and used to chase her and Peter around with a broom when they were kids. The neighbourhood witch. Edna, said Linda, how are you? Battling on, she groaned. Battling on. She slammed her cane down as she walked. Come, sit down. I'd offer you a cup of tea, but... Linda felt Andrew approach from behind her, so she stepped aside. No, thank you, said the old woman. Not for me. If I drink tea now, I'll be up all night. The caffeine? Asked Andrew. The bladder. The old bladder. You know, they don't make them like they used to. There was an awkward silence. Thank you for calling me, said Linda. About Hodgie. I should have called you earlier, Edna said. But you called me as soon as the ambulance left. I heard the sirens. What I mean is, I should have called you months ago, when she started acting strangely. Always been an odd duck, our Hodgie, said Andrew. But I think something happened. Something changed. What do you mean? Asked Linda. I don't know. Alzheimer's, dementia. Although, if Larry heard me say that, he'd say it's like the sieves saying the colander leaks. Edna's husband Larry had been dead for years, so Linda took her point. She fired Samuel for no discernible reason. You know, the gardener. Been working for us for years, that man. Then, out of the blue, she chases him off the property and throws a rotten apple at him. I saw the whole thing happen. It does explain the state of the house, said Linda, if she fired all her help. She was never the best housekeeper, said Edna. But this is terrible, Linda said, gesturing around, even for her. Andrew sighed and ruffled his hair. Both women looked at him expectantly. What? Asked Linda. I didn't want to tell you, but I found some bodies outside. In the backyard, in black plastic bags. Linda jolted. Bodies? What kind of bodies? How could you not tell me? I didn't want to upset you. What kind of bodies, for God's sake? I don't know. I didn't want to investigate. Small bodies. Squirrels or cats, or especially well-proportioned rats. Edna nodded, and her nostrils flared. She was always complaining about the feral cats. They'd get into the house, through the broken windows, no doubt, and chew through packets of food in her larder. They'd spray, you know, mark their territory. It's difficult to get rid of that smell, you know. It's especially stubborn, wild cat piss. A motorbike growled up the driveway. The box on the back was branded with a cheerful illustration of a pizza. Linda's stomach growled. Will you stay for dinner, Edna? Oh, we've eaten already, thanks, love. I made Larry's favourite, haddock and egg pie. I'll be going then, just wanted to check in. We'll go visit Hodge tomorrow morning, if you'd like to come along. Plenty of space in the car. Oh, no, thank you. No, I won't be doing that. Linda didn't try to hide her surprise. Linda, dear, don't you know? Hodgie and I haven't spoken for years. The next morning, Linda and Andrew had yet to visit Linda's grandmother in the hospital. They had to get the house ready for the refuse removal team, they agreed. They had to put aside the valuable things. There weren't many, and they kept finding more boxes to open. Before they knew it, the men had arrived in their uniforms and heavy-duty gloves and had shifted most of the household contents into the skips they had brought along. Quinton, the team leader, was updating them on their quick progress. He had a round frame and a Scottish accent. The morning light caught the red in his beard. We've got most of the rubbish out into the skips already. I've ordered a new one for the rest. All the good furniture has been wrapped up and sent to storage, and the clothes and personal effects. Thank you, said Linda. Your team is very efficient. It doesn't pay to hang around. Yes, I'm sure, especially in a place like this. Oh, I've seen worse. I've seen a lot worse. Really? I have stories that would scare the bejesus out of you, lady. I'd love to hear them. Quinton laughed. Really? She's a writer, you see, said Andrew. Ah, now that explains it. Always looking for stories, eh? Well, mine would give you nightmares. Nightmares. I have enough of my own. Well then, let's not exchange them, shall we? You need all the rest you can get, by the looks of you. Linda blinked. I'll try not to be offended by that remark. I just meant by your delicate condition is all. You need to rest up while you can. I've got 3 little buggers running around at home, and I can tell you sleep is a long-forgotten commodity in our house. Andrew seemed put out by this. Perhaps they'd stick to one little bugger. How much longer will your team need? We'll try to be out of your hair by sunset. Thank you again, said Andrew. Oh, said Quinton, scratching his head. Just a wee couple of things. Yes, the kitchen things. They can also go. Everything can go. It's just that there's a soup kitchen right up the road, you see, at the church. Oh, I didn't know. They do good work, and I'd hate to just turf out all the food in the larder. There are loads of things that haven't even been opened. Flour, sugar, tinned food, not to mention the pots and pans. It would come in really handy at the shelter, I'm sure. They'll collect. You don't have to bother about that. Consider it gone. All right. Good. That sounds perfect, said Linda. What was the other thing? Ah, my men set aside a few things. They're in the next room. Quinton gestured for them to go together, and they followed his lead. Small things, not things you'd want to be stored with the furniture, I think. But they weren't sure there were junk either. An old photograph album. My men don't like to throw away photos. And a few bits and bobs. What are those strange things? Asked Andrew. Toy tea set spoons? The flush of red on Quinton's skin deepened, and he cleared his throat. I believe they're antique heroin spoons, sir. Andrew's jaw almost hit the ground. Heroin? Although she wasn't to know that, was she? They're ancient. Linda picked up a glass trinket off the table. Look at this beautiful thing. Hand-blown glass. So tiny. What is it? I don't know, said Andrew, inspecting it. A vial of sorts, sealed with wax. I wonder what this liquid is inside. God, in this house, Andrew shuddered, it could be anything. No, said Quinton. I know you're heading back tomorrow, but there's an antique fair in town this weekend. Your timing is excellent. An antique fair? Said Linda. It wasn't her usual cup of tea, and she was tired. If I were you, I'd take this lot along and see what you can get for it. You may be surprised at what some junk has been picked up for. That cuckoo clock, for one. That horribly kitsch thing, said Linda. I'm surprised it's not in the heap outside. You'd be surprised, ma'am. I suppose that one man's trash is another man's treasure and all that, said Andrew. I think you may be able to get something for it, and they're good, honest people. They won't try to do you in. Linda was tempted. Having the removal team take care of the dirty work had not come cheap, despite her brother in the UK paying half the bill. Perhaps, if she sold the clock, she'd be able to offset some of the expenses, even if it was in a small way. They still needed so many things for the baby. At the very least, they'd have somewhere to go for lunch. The antique fair was held on the rugby field of the local high school, and it was a hive of activity. People of all persuasions buzzed around, and the smell of cinnamon pancakes and frying doughnuts made Linda's mouth water. The clock was snapped up within minutes. "Ah, yes, it's a beauty," said the antique dealer. "I'd definitely be interested in that." Linda looked at the old man in his grey apron and gold-framed specs. "Really?" "Oh, yes, love. It's a Black Forest original, that clock is. Schwarzwald. All it needs is a little TLC, and I'll give it a good home." He took a short, blunt pencil from behind his ear and scribbled his offer on a scrap of paper, then passed it to them. "Wonderful," said Andrew. Linda and her husband looked at each other, not quite believing their luck. "Okay, so that's the Chinese silver filigree card case, the brass barley twist candlesticks, the old Dalton gravy boat, the silver-footed tray, and the darling clock." "Yes." "Would you prefer a cheque or EFT?" "Don't forget about the glass thing," said Andrew to Linda. "The vial." "Oh," said Linda, rifling in her handbag. "Of course. I wrapped it in cotton wool. It looks fragile. Look at this. Isn't it charming? I don't expect to sell it, but I was interested in its origin." The antique dealer took it from her and squinted. "Oh, no," he said. "I would never accept this." "I didn't mean for you to make an offer. I just thought it was rather quaint." "It's not that, love. It is very pretty indeed. But I know that kind of bottle, and there's only one place it will be welcome." "Where's that?" asked Andrew. "The Poison Control Centre." They finalized their transaction with the dealer and headed to the nearest food truck for a Prego roll and chips. They found a table in the shade of a tree, one of dozens covered in pretty tablecloths. "Well," said Andrew, "that went better than expected. I didn't think we'd get anything for that lot." "Me neither. I guess this lunch is on Hodge." They tapped their bottles of water together. "It's the bloody least she can do." "And a tip for Quentin and his team," said Linda. "And maybe a cot for the baby," said Andrew. And they looked at each other and held hands. "I just don't understand why she'd have that poison in her house." "She probably didn't even know what it was. She liked collecting things, that's all." "But heroin spoons? Poison?" "It probably just came with the house. You know what those old houses are like. Walls coated in mercury paint and all manner of poisons in the basement. They were pretty free and easy with them in the old days. You'd get arsenic at the local pharmacy, thallium at the grocer's. Any old lady could buy enough poison to fell an elephant for a couple of cents." "And without raising any kind of suspicion," said Linda. "Ah, I see," said Andrew, wiping at his mouth with his paper serviette. He pointed at Linda. "You're hatching a new story." "Am I?" "I can always tell. I can see that wicked glimmer in your eye." Linda laughed. "Don't be ridiculous." "So, you deny it?" "No. I'm just not sure there's a story. Yet. There's always a story." On the way home, Andrew turns the car radio down. "Look, I'm not going to nag you." "Good," said Linda. "What are you not going to nag me about?" "I'm just asking you. I won't mention it again. I just wanted to make sure that you're sure." Linda looked out of the window. "I'm sure. It just seems crazy that we don't visit her while we're here." "I know. We're not even 10 kilometers away from the hospital. I can turn the car around." "No. Let's get home." "Okay, I'm sure you have your reasons, and you've done a lot for her. Sorting out the house, finding a new place, putting myself into a black hole of debt even though I'm about to have a child. What I mean is, you shouldn't feel guilty about not seeing her, Even though she's your only living relative apart from your brother, and she's in hospital. I thought you said you weren't going to nag. I don't mean to push you. I'm just finding it difficult to understand. I mean, we haven't visited her since you fell pregnant. Linda felt suddenly exhausted. It's not that I'm not going to see her. I'll see her when I'm ready. A few days later, while Andrew was at work, Linda strolled to the restaurant up the road. The walk did her good, even though her back was still aching when she arrived. Her literary agent was waiting at the table for her. "Linda!" she cried with open arms. "Darling!" "Felicity!" The agent jumped up and they hugged. She was looking glamorous, as usual, and Linda self-consciously tugged at her old jacket to hide the fraying sleeves of the blouse beneath it. "Look at you!" exclaimed Felicity. "What a beautiful bump! How are you? How is Brian?" "Brian?" asked Linda. "Do you mean Andrew?" "Brian, Andrew, they're all the same at the end of the day, aren't they?" Linda laughed. Felicity married and divorced more times than she changed hairdressers, which was often. "We're good," said Linda. "We're all good. You?" "Good. Great. Stressed. Time-starved. Exhausted. You know, the usual. Sometimes I think these bags under my eyes will never go away." "Which bags?" "Ah, you're so kind," laughed Felicity and banged the tabletop. "A liar, but a kind liar." Linda smiled and put her hand on her belly. It wasn't a conscious gesture. It often just floated there of its own accord. "Wine?" asked Felicity. "I've got a bottle of Riesling here. It's delicious. I've heard that Riesling is the new thing." "No thanks," said Linda, patting her bump. "I'm still on the wagon." "Oh, of course, sorry." "Ah, it's not for much longer. Anyway, more for you." They clinked glasses and grinned at each other. "I've had an idea," said Linda, playing with the silver fork on the table. "For a new book." "Well," said Felicity, throwing back her last sip and topping her glass up. "That is good news. I wasn't expecting anything from you while you were—" She gestures in a circular motion at Linda's stomach. "Baking your bun." "I know. It wasn't planned. The new idea, I mean. I tried to ignore it. It's really not the time to start a new project, but it keeps nagging at me. It wakes me up at night. Or rather, the baby wakes me up at night by kicking my rib cage, but then the book idea keeps me awake." "Tell me more." "My grandmother's house. It got me thinking. Oh, God, I forgot to ask. How is old Podge?" "Out of ICU. That's great news. But still in the hospital. They say she'll be ready to go home soon. Her new home, that is." "Good, good." "We found poison in her house." Felicity paused, bread roll halfway up to her lips. "Poison? What? Like rat poison?" "Maybe." She put down the roll. "Maybe. Probably. It was in an antique glass bottle. A beautiful thing. And it just started me thinking, you know, what if it wasn't for rats?" "You want to write about poison? About poisoning people?" "Not just poison, but about the philosophy of poison." "The philosophy of poison. God, I love the sound of that. When can you start?" "That's why we're friends," said Linda. "You appreciate my disturbed mind. Andrew thinks I'm terrible and dark, you know. He wonders how I come up with such awful things, especially as I'm about to become the mother of his child. But I just find it fascinating, you know. I mean, it's one thing whipping out a gun and shooting someone, that outright kind of violence, blood and gore. But there is something inherently intriguing to me about the insidiousness of the act of killing someone with food. I mean, the whole point of cooking for someone, to nourish them, to show that you love them, and then you put poison in that food. It's compelling." Linda stopped playing with the fork and interlaced her fingers. "And then there's the botanical side of it. Poisonous gardens. Shiny black nightshade berries, hairy hemlock, a wicked witch's potion garden, and the biological side, how the poisoner leaves their indelible mark on their victim, streaks of toxins in their hair and fingernails, like a code, a history you can't erase. Look, for what it's worth, I think it's definitely worth exploring. The philosophy of poison. Send me a proposal and I'll take it to Finch. I can send you more than that. I've already started the research. I couldn't help myself. What do you have? Some stories. True crime. I'll dig deeper, of course, but that's where I'm starting. Then, maybe, I'll think of my own story of poison. Widow Cotton, Britain, 1873. The widow, Mary Ann Cotton, was branded the worst mass murderer Britain had ever seen. West Auckland welfare worker Thomas Riley first became suspicious when Mrs. Cotton had approached him, asking if he had room in the country Durham workhouse for her 7-year-old stepson, Charles Edward. The request itself was not unusual. Times were tough, and the boy was taking up a bed that could have been let to a lodger. The boy, Mary Ann Cotton said, is in the way. Riley, the welfare worker, had no space to accommodate Cotton's son. When the child died 6 days later, Riley approached the police, telling them the boy had been in perfect health the week before. The rushed post-mortem examination was performed before the hearing, but the town doctor found no evidence of foul play. The body was buried in a pauper's grave. The doctor, however, had kept the contents of the boy's stomach, and when he found time to do a proper chemical analysis, he found distinct traces of arsenic. Widow Cotton was arrested the next morning. Riley was still suspicious. There had, in fact, been 4 deaths in the 2 years where the former nurse had been living. Her late husband, coal miner Frederick Cotton, had died from gastric fever in September 1871, just 2 days after the couple's first wedding anniversary. Between March and April the next year, Cotton's 10-year-old son, her 14-month-old infant, and Joseph Nattrass, her former lover, all died under her roof. The 3 bodies were exhumed, and traces of arsenic were found in all of them. Newspaper journalists began to take a closer look at the life of Mary Ann Cotton and discovered a horrifying history of an outwardly kind maternal woman and devout Methodist who spread death around her like the plague. At 20, in Devon, she married a labourer called Mowbray. Together, they had 5 children. 3 more children were to be born and to die. Soon, Mowbray followed suit. Her next husband, an engineer called Wood, died in 1866, only 14 months after the wedding. Mary Ann then moved into widower James Robinson's house as a housekeeper and soon became pregnant by him, and the pair were married. His 3 children, of course, didn't stand a chance. Marching to their small graves in quick succession were Robinson's son, 10 months old, another son, 6 years old, followed by his sister. Mary Ann's biological children didn't fare any better. 9-year-old Isabella Mowbray lost her life, and so did one of her days-old daughters by Robinson. The marriage broke up, leaving Robinson somewhat surprisingly alive after his nifty refusal to take out life insurance. Mary Ann moved on to take care of her sickly mother, and within 9 days, she was dead. Mary met her next unlucky lover through his sister. The bigamous marriage was marred only slightly by the sister's death, but left the couple £60 richer. Altogether, 21 people, that we know of, lost their lives in less than 20 years. Mary Ann had given birth to 11 children, but only one, a girl she gave away, survived. The court could only charge her for the murder of her stepson, Charles, whose life was insured for £8. She was hanged on March 24th, 1873, at the Durham scaffold. The children sang her song for years afterwards while skipping rope. Mary Ann Cotton, she's dead and rotten. Marie Lafarge, France, 1840. The 1840 case of Marie Lafarge was one of the most popular arsenic poisoning stories in 19th century Europe. Marie, a raven-haired beauty, was 24 years old. She was a French aristocrat orphan who was forced into marriage with the duplicitous Charles Defarge, an older man who had painted himself as a successful businessman and the owner of a beautiful chateau. Once married, Marie discovered that Charles was in fact bankrupt, and the castle was run down and rat-infested. There was also the issue of the rather frightening resident mother-in-law, and the shock to her refinement of the manner in which her new husband paid his attentions. A few months into the marriage, Charles began feeling ill. When he died, his family became suspicious and approached the police, who arrested Marie. The beautiful young widow elicited great sympathy at her trial. Her lawyer was sure to tell the court of her excellent piano-playing skills and delightful voice, her competence in science and languages, and her Italian poetry. She was also a good actress. She fainted and had to be carried out of court on more than one occasion. Then, a year into proceedings, a renowned toxicologist was called in, and the truth was discovered. It appeared that the poison for the rats had made their way into the man's daily bread. By then, Marie's hair was grey, and she had to be carried in and out of the courtroom on a chaise. She was found guilty and sentenced to hard labour for life. There was a gentle knocking on the door, and Linda looked up from her laptop. "Don't shoot," joked Andrew. "I brought grilled cheese sandwiches." "Oh," said Linda, "I completely lost track of time." "Sorry to interrupt." "You're not interrupting." "It's going well, then, the manuscript?" You know, still researching. I'm trying to find my way." Andrew nodded and was about to say something when Linda snapped her laptop shut. "I need to tell you something." Andrew was still standing at the door with the tray. "I don't like the sound of that." "I have to tell you so that you understand. The reason we always took our own food to Hodgie's house. The reason we never stayed the night. Because her cooking was awful, her beds were lumpy, her house was haunted, and it smelled funny." Andrew's smiling, but Linda's face is grey. "Apart from that." "You've got my attention." "When we used to stay there, Peter and I, as kids, the house was kind of haunted, in a way." "I knew it." "Granny Hodge, she was the one." "She was the one who what?" "The one who made bad things happen." "Sweet, mad old Hodgie? What do you mean?" "She used to put things in our food." "In your... like what?" "We never knew. We never spoke about it. We just knew that if we stayed there, we would pass out after lunch and not wake up for hours and hours. She was always begging us to stay the night." "You're saying Hodge would drug you?" "I don't know. We weren't even sure if it was true. I mean, how could it be true? Wonderful, warm Granny Hodgepodge. Sometimes it would be our stomachs. Maybe she used laxatives or something. We always seemed to come down with something when we were there, and then we'd stay over, just like she wanted us to." "You weren't sure then? What about now?" "I wouldn't be able to prove it, if that's what you mean." "But you agreed with Peter not to eat her food?" "Yes, when we were 16, when we lost Mum and Dad." "And since then? No passing out, no sickness?" "Yes." "I'd say that's your proof right there." "But it doesn't make any sense. It's a difficult thing to wrap your head around. What reason could she have? God, we loved her. How can you love such a wicked person?" "Once, when her vision was starting to fail, she made us some French toast. There was this white powder on it. It wasn't icing sugar. Jesus Christ. We didn't wait to find out. Chucked it out of the window when she wasn't looking. That's when we promised each other." "Those half-melted heroin spoons," said Andrew, "and the vial of poison? It wasn't an accident that we found those in her house. That's probably the least of it. That house is probably layered with different kinds of poisons. God, those bags of dead animals. He slammed the tray onto her desk in disgust, making Linda jump. The vial is what started me thinking, said Linda. About the book? About the abuse. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Andrew didn't hesitate to answer. Yes. So insidious that we never even knew we were being abused, that we never knew enough to confront it, and it didn't stop us, of course. I mean, Peter and I. What do you mean? Her husbands died, didn't they? Both of them, under her roof. Now, that may be jumping to conclusions. There are no conclusions. That is what makes this infuriating. But 2 husbands who ate her cooking every day of their lives? And what about Uncle Sid? He died there too. He was so young. The blood drained from Andrew's face and left him looking as white as wax. He slumped down into a chair and put his hand to his temple. Your parents, he said. It was a car accident. Yes, said Linda, her jaw tightening. A car accident. On their way home from Hodges' house. Andrew left the cold sandwiches in Linda's office and went to pour himself a stiff drink and make a cup of tea. Linda opened her laptop again, created a new document, and started typing. No one thought it suspicious when Linda Harrison, at 7 months pregnant, parked outside her ill grandmother's house, which had been boarded up and plastered with for sale signs. The neighbour, Edna Ruth, was washing the supper dishes from the night before and lifted her yellow hand in a soapy wave, but Linda did not see her. The key was in the same place as always, and Linda let herself in through the front door. She made her way through the kitchen, where she found everything she needed, and the oven, still in working order. The eggs, milk and butter she had brought herself. For the other ingredients, she helped herself from her grandmother's pantry, and then threw all the other food away. Once the cookies were baked and cooled, Linda slid them carefully into the gift box she had brought and tied it with the black and white ribbon she had found on her last visit. She took the cookies with her and left the house smelling of freshly baked cookies, never to return. Linda walked down the hospital hallway, gift box in hand, black and white ribbon swaying. She greeted a nurse and asked for her grandmother's room. Ah, dear Mrs. Hodge, the nurse had lipstick on her teeth. We were wondering when she'd get a visitor. Poor dear, she's desperate for company. Linda waited patiently for the room number, but the nurse sniffed the air and looked at the box. And you've brought her some treats. What a darling you are. She'll love those. She'll just love those. Which way is it? To her room. You're Linda, aren't you? She knew you'd come, you know. She kept telling us. Down that corridor there, through the double door. She's in 24A. That's the second on your right. Linda thanked the nurse and walked through the double doors. Linda Harris stood outside her grandmother's door, her fist suspended in the air, as if she was about to knock, but something held her back. In her other hand, the gift box became damp with perspiration. Her thoughts were difficult to grasp. Pictures and sensations flashed in on her mind. Her mother's easy laugh, her father's cigarette smoke, Peter on his bashed-up blue bike. Linda remembered Granny Hodge gently combing and braiding her hair for her parents' funeral, tying it carefully with a black and white ribbon. It was the baby in her belly that brought Linda Harrison back to life. The kick in her ribs woke her up, still standing there with her white knuckles at the hospital room door. She lowered her hand and turned around to leave. With his kicking, the baby was asserting himself, asserting the cycle of life. Linda dropped the unopened box of cookies into the hospital waste chute. She heard it tumble deep into the building, and then drove home, stopping only to buy a baby crib on the way.